All right, folks, we are back. 6:38 in the p.m. on Friday, March the 22nd, 2024. The future is here, and it does not look bright. If you listen to the first segment, this is the final official episode of My Country with Scott Cannon. Before we rebrand the show yet again, next week it will be the total rebranding of the show. We will talk about what the show will be called from going out to the next, going into the future. You got to forgive me, folks. I got like 3 hours of sleep yesterday, so I'm very tired. But yes, we will be rebranding the show again, so stay tuned. We're going to talk about what the show will be called from here on out. In the first segment, we talked about mass immigration, how the Biden administration flew 300,000 migrants into the country, illegal immigrants into the country, without telling anybody, and won't tell anybody where they flew them to. So we have no idea who these people are, or what they're doing, or why they're here, what their intentions are. But good times. Good times. I actually wanted to talk about this article from the New York Times that a lot of us are very surprised that they wrote, because, you know, the New York Times is very much a liberal, progressive newspaper, in that it pushes the sort of liberal agendas, and big part of that is the transgender movement. And there have been multiple times when there's been controversies over things that they had written about the trans movement, but the nation's largest newspaper actually wrote an article, or should I say, one of they platformed a writer who wrote an article about how a lot of transgender children think that they are trans, and after they transition, realize that they didn't want to transition at all, that it wasn't a good idea for them to transition. The article is called As Kids They Thought They Were Trans, They No Longer Do. And so basically what we're seeing is this is a new group of patients for Big Pharma and for the medical industry. This small but rapidly growing number of children who express gender dysphoria and who are transitioning at an early age is a recent phenomenon. This psychologist, a woman named Laura Edwards Leeper, who is the founding psychologist of the first pediatric gender clinic in the United States, said that when she started her practice in 2007, most of her patients had long-standing and deep-seated gender dysphoria. Most of her patients now have no history of childhood gender dysphoria. Now, other people refer to this phenomenon with some controversy as rapid onset gender dysphoria, in which adolescents, particularly tween and teenage girls, express gender dysphoria despite never having done so when they were younger. Frequently, they have mental health issues unrelated to gender. While professional associations say that there is a lack of quality research on rapid onset gender dysphoria, several researchers have documented this phenomenon, and many healthcare providers have seen evidence of it in their practices. In a recent study in the Archives of Sexual Behavior, about 40 young detransitioners out of 78 surveyed said that they had suffered from rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is what happens when you're dealing with children. This is what anybody with common sense has said for a long time. If you're a parent, you don't let your kids regularly decide what they're having for dinner, much less what their gender is. Good God. Trans activists have fought hard to suppress any discussion of rapid onset gender dysphoria, despite evidence that the condition is real. In its guide for journalist, the activist organization GLAAD warns the media against using the term as it is not a formal condition or diagnosis. Human Rights Campaign, another activist group, calls it a right-wing theory. Oh, here we go again. A group of professional organizations put out a statement urging clinicians to eliminate the term from use. And this is how we do this now. This is how we censor people or try to marginalize dissenting opinions. This is how the liberal media and the establishment, they say you're a right-winger. Everybody's a right-winger now. If you don't think a 5-year-old should be pumped full of hormones and, encouraged to have genital surgery in a few years, then you're a right-winger. And even if you do support the transgender movement, but you want to look into things like rapid onset gender dysphoria, just to study it as a phenomenon, a clinical phenomenon, they also call you a right-winger. That is the new way to shun and shut out voices that you don't agree with. You're a right-winger. You're a white supremacist. You're a homophobe. You're a sexist. You like Trump. You like Trump. Sound like a bunch of y'all call this show sometimes. You like Trump? No, I don't like Trump. I just don't like. I don't like either party. But you like Trump, really? You don't just go with what MSNBC and CNN tell you. So you like Trump? Stephanie Wynn, a licensed marriage and family therapist in Oregon, was trained in gender-affirming care and treated multiple transgender patients. But in 2020, after coming across detransition videos online, she began to doubt the gender-affirming model. In 2021, she spoke out in favor of approaching gender dysphoria in a more considered way. So how do you think that Stephanie Wynn was treated after she said, let's just approach gender dysphoria in a more nuanced and considered way? Do you think the people in the trans movement said, you know what, you're right. These are very relatively new phenomenons in our culture and society, or B, do you think they threatened to kill her and destroy her life? If you said B, you were correct. That's exactly what happened. They threatened to kill her and destroy her life. She has since been attacked by transgender activists. Some have threatened to send complaints to her licensing board, saying that she was trying to make kids change their minds through conversion therapy. And in April of 2022, the Oregon Board of Licensed Professional Counselors and Therapists told Wynn that she was under investigation. Think about that. They told her she was under investigation for saying, hey, let's just take a step back. She's not anti-trans at all. She's just saying, let's do more research. Let's study more. Let's look into this and sort of pump the brakes on just, pumping everybody full of drugs and cutting people's genitals off. And they said, no, how dare you? You send your 3-year-old directly to the clinic, to the Boston Children's Hospital, so they can have their non-existent boobs chopped off. The therapist told the Oregon Board of Licensed Professional Counselors and Therapists told Wynn that she was under investigation. Her case was ultimately dismissed, but she's no longer treating minors and practices only online, where many of her patients are worried parents of trans-identifying children. So this woman had to go basically be an online therapist because she's like, look, these people are crazy. I don't want to have people knowing where I am. She can't let people know where she is just because she had the temerity to say, let's just pump the brakes on this. Now, for their part, people who detransition say that only conservative media outlets seem interested in telling their stories. Again, You like Trump? No, I just don't think that like 6-year-olds should be determining their gender, just like I don't think that 6-year-olds should be determining what they eat for dinner tonight. Or what they like, I don't think they should always be choosing what they wear to school. I like school uniforms. When I was in school, I used to go, oh my God, school uniforms. But now as an adult, I see the utility in school uniforms. They're probably a good idea. A lot of families don't have a lot of money. You cut down on the jealousy between children, young people. People aren't so focused on the material. You don't teach kids to be materialistic and narcissistic. We shouldn't let kids decide. Kids are impressionable. Kids are dumb. That's the whole point of being a kid, is you get to be dumb for 18 years. But just for saying that, you like Trump. Go back to Alabama. There are people who were once trans-identified kids that so many organizations say that they're trying to protect, but when they change their mind, they feel abandoned. So these people who pressured them and said, yeah, you're transgender, get the surgery, take all these pills that completely alter your biology and chemistry, your body chemistry forever. Go ahead and do it. But when people have regret, they go, sorry to hear that, Mac. See ya. Parents have said that it's a struggle to balance the desire to compassionately support a child with gender dysphoria while seeking the best psychological and medical care. Many believe their kids were gay or just dealing with an array of complex issues. A lot of those kids are just autistic. But all said that they felt compelled by gender clinicians, doctors, schools, and social pressure to exceed their child's declared gender identity, even if they had serious doubts. They feared that it would tear their family apart if they didn't unquestionably support social transition and medical treatment. Here we go. It's just like with the vaccine. If you don't do this, you're going to be maligned, slandered. There's going to be big social consequences if you don't go along with what we want you to go along with. There we go. And so the whole religious, it's almost a religious cult that you see with a lot of I won't say the left, because again, the left, we are class warriors. I'll say it's liberals. And there's a difference between liberalism and leftism. Leftism is class war politics. That's what I do. Rich people are bad. Most of them are. They want to exploit the poor. They want to exploit the working class and then say nobody wants to work or something, because people won't allow themselves to be exploited for low wages. I am a class warrior. I want people to have health care. I want people to have jobs, good paying jobs. I believe what Franklin Roosevelt did, that every job in America should be done by an American for a living wage. Living wage. That is the key. Not for slave wages, not for, barely enough to scrape by, but a living wage. That was what Franklin Roosevelt, the best president America's probably ever had, said. That is the left. That is leftism on some level, okay? Providing for the poor, for the working classes, standing up against exploitation. A lot of people would say communism or socialism, which puts the means of production into the hands of the people and takes it away from the capitalists who exploit the working class and exploit laborers. That is leftism. Liberalism is this crap. This is what usually the New York Times is in favor of, and MSNBC and CNN, the social experimentation crap like this. Big difference. Learn the difference between liberalism and leftism. And so these parents who just say, look, I don't know if little Tommy or little Gina is really really having this type of crisis. I just think that they are trying to find themselves as a young person. No, you like Trump. You like Trump. You should be fired from your job. Go back to Alabama. Many parents of kids who consider themselves trans say that their children were introduced to transgender influencers on YouTube or TikTok, a phenomenon intensified by some of the isolation and online cocoon of COVID. Yes. Others say kids learn these ideas in the classroom as early as elementary school, often in child-friendly ways through curriculum supplied by the trans rights organizations, with concepts like the gender unicorn and the genderbread person. Now, how does that make you feel? That your tax dollars are going to public schools where they are literally indoctrinating your children to have gender dysphoria at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old. That's not leftism, folks. That is liberalism, not leftism. Leftism is saying, yeah, we should have public schools paid for collectively by the people so that we make sure all children are educated. Sounds like a good job. Public schools are what helped America become the most prosperous country in the history of the world. We had the greatest public schools ever. The city of Gary, this where I'm at right now, had one of the greatest school systems in the world. People all over the world came to study in the 1950s and the 1960s, the Gary, Indiana public school system. That's leftism right there. We have a public school system paid for by the taxpayers that makes sure all of our kids get a good education. That's what Gary used to do. That's what America used to do. That is leftism. Liberalism is, you like Trump if you don't want a 6-year-old to be a girl, to cut their genitals off and start pretending to be a girl. You like Trump. That is liberalism. Hysterical liberalism at that. Parents are routinely warned to pursue any path outside of agreeing with their child's self-declared gender identity is to put gender dysphoric youth at risk for suicide, which feels to many people like emotional blackmail. That's what it is. That's literally what it is. If you tell somebody, if you don't agree that I am a woman, that I'll kill myself, that's the definition of emotional blackmail. If your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend says, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. What is that? That is emotional blackmail. And it is so bizarre that people who spend so much time saying that you can't say that gender dysphoria is mental illness, that these people are mentally ill, spend so much time saying that if you don't go along with us, we will kill ourselves. Because all the healthy people I know constantly threaten to kill themselves, right? How many completely mentally healthy individuals threaten to kill themselves regularly? I don't know any. But I digress, humans. Let's go. Proponents of the gender-affirming model have cited studies showing an association between the standard of care and lower risk of suicide. They do this, they do that. But those studies were found to have methodological flaws or have been deemed not entirely conclusive. A survey of studies on the psychological effects of cross-sex hormones published 3 years ago in the Journal of Endocrine Society, the professional organization for hormone specialists, found that it could not draw any conclusions about death by suicide. So one of the ways that the rabid trans liberal mafia gets people to agree to drugging and castrating children is by saying, if you don't agree to this, they'll all kill themselves. Well, this study says that they're not even more likely to kill themselves. That even that talking point is just nonsense. In a letter to the Wall Street Journal last year, 21 experts from 9 countries said that the survey was one of the reasons that they believed there was no reliable evidence to suggest that hormonal transition is an effective suicide prevention measure. So kill that talking point. Moreover, the incidence of suicidal thoughts and attempts amongst gender dysphoric youth is complicated, as the high incidence of accompanying conditions such as autism, what I talked about earlier, as one systematic overview put it, children with gender dysphoria often experience a range of psychiatric comorbidities with a high prevalence of mood and anxiety disorders, trauma, eating disorders, and autism spectrum conditions, suicidality, and self-harm. Again, a lot of these young people are just mentally ill, and we're not allowed to say this. Because you like Trump. You like Trump. If you like Trump, go back to Alabama. Studies show that around 8 in 10 cases of childhood gender dysphoria resolve themselves by puberty, and 30% of people on hormone therapy discontinue its use within 4 years, though the effects, including infertility, are often irreversible. So a lot of the people who are saying that this is about population control, because I know that there's a lot of people who believe that, including a lot of y'all, because we talked about it. Maybe these people are rendered infertile for the rest of their lives. You're allowed to make a decision at 8 years old, 10 years old, 14 years old that will render you infertile forever, and we're encouraging this as a society? How does that make sense? Make it make sense. Proponents of early social transition and medical interventions for gender dysphoric youth cite a 2022 study showing that 98% of children who took both puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones continued treatment for short periods, and another study that tracked 317 children who socially transitioned between the ages of 3 and 12, which found that 94% of them still identified as transgender 5 years later. But such early interventions may cement children's self-conceptions without giving them time to think or sexually mature. Duh. If you tell a 3-year-old, hey, you're a girl now, don't be shocked that when the kid is 8, he think, well, I guess I'm a girl now. I got all the girl parts. Y'all said I was a girl, so I'm a girl, I guess. I guess I'm just sort of, here I am, I'm a girl. Why the rush? Why the rush to sexualize and make these children make decisions at 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old? Why the rush? Why the rush? This is what I don't get. When you're 18, you can do what you want. It's a free country. You got Caitlyn Jenner running around. Caitlyn Jenner waited till he, she, it, whatever, they were 65 or something to transgender. That's Caitlyn Jenner's business. But what I heard was a very pernicious theory. Somebody said this. I forget exactly who I want to attribute this to, but they said that the reason that the push is for younger children to transition is because you have more of a chance of being considered attractive to the opposite sex, or the sex that you're trying to attract, the earlier you are. So it's not about just identity. They want to be hot. They want to be hot chicks or hot dudes. And you can do that if you start intervening before puberty sort of cements, you know, your gender biology. Which, again, why would we even be thinking about that in regards to young children? Again, as I said, folks, the elites in our society are cashing out. Oh, before I go to a break, because I'm going to have to go to a break, I wanted to play this, right? This doctor from Vanderbilt University actually got in a lot of trouble because she actually revealed what a lot of this is about. How much money these surgeries and the medication brings in. You got to listen to this. This woman is openly bragging. This is Vanderbilt University. She's openly bragging about how much money they make castrating children.
Starting in January 1st of 2017, according to the Affordable Care Act, insurance carriers are mandated to cover medical expenses for trans folks. Some of our BUMC financial folks in October of 2016, starting a couple years ago, put down some costs of how much money we think each patient would bring in. And this is only including top surgery. This isn't including any bottom surgery. And it's a lot of money. These surgeries make a lot of money. So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000. A patient just on routine hormone treatment, who I'm only seeing a few times a year, can bring in several $1,000s because that requires a lot of visits and labs. It actually makes money for the hospital. Now these I got from the internet, but it's from the Philadelphia Center for Transgender Surgery, which does a lot of surgery for patients. And I just want to give you an idea of how much these bottom surgeries are making. And I think this has to be an underestimate. This is for a vaginoplasty. They're quoting roughly around $20,000 for a vaginoplasty, but that doesn't include your hospital stay. That doesn't include your post-op visits. That doesn't include your anesthesia, your OR. So I would think that this has to be a gross underestimate. I think that's just like the surgeon's piece of it, which anybody who's ever been in the hospital knows that that's like 10% of it. And then the female to male bottom surgeries, these are huge money makers. Again, I think this has to be an underestimate. If they're quoting around $20,000 for a phalloplasty, there's been different things that I've read that said it could be up to $100,000. Dr. Winokur, who's our surgeon, says that there's entire clinics where the entire clinic is supported just by their phalloplasties, and that is like a fraction of the surgeries that they're doing. These surgeries are labor intensive, they require a lot of follow-ups, they require a lot of OR time, and they make money. They make money for the hospital.
They make money. They make money for the hospital. These surgeries cost tens of thousands of dollars. These people have to be on medication for the rest of their lives. If you start a young person on these medications when they're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they will be taking them to their 90 years old if they live that long. Think about how many hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars these drug companies seek to make, and how much money these hospitals seek to make off of these expensive surgeries. Again, as a leftist, this is what you get with capitalism, folks. I'm just saying. But that's neither here nor there, because when we get back, happies! We'll be right back after these. Last episode.